This is my true story. I gave my life to my wife, trusting her with everything I had. I trusted my brother too, because blood is supposed to be unbreakable. But I never expected betrayal to come from inside my own house. What I found destroyed me. My wife and my brother in the very bed I slept in. I didn't scream. I didn't fight. I took the photos. And then I gave them to the one person who deserved to know the truth. His wife. Before I tell you what happened next, comment where you're watching from and please subscribe so my story can reach more people. I gave my wife everything I had, and I thought that was enough. From the first day of our marriage, I worked and sacrificed so she would never feel empty or alone. Every day, I gave her the best of myself. I worked long hours, came home tired, and still managed to make sure she had food on the table, comfort in her heart, and a house she could feel proud of. I trusted her more than I trusted anyone else. I put her before myself, before my own needs, before my own dreams. When she smiled, I thought it was because she felt loved. When she laughed, I thought it was because she was happy with me. For decades, I believed her loyalty was just as strong as mine. I never doubted her, not even once, because I thought our marriage was built on unbreakable trust. I also trusted my brother. He was not just blood to me, he was my closest friend. I grew up protecting him, defending him when others tried to bring him down, giving him help when he needed it. I thought brothers were supposed to stand together no matter what, and I lived by that belief. I gave him the same loyalty I gave my wife. I let him into my house, into my life, into the family I built. I trusted him to always honor the bond we shared. I thought betrayal was something that came from outsiders, from strangers who wanted to harm you. I never once thought it could come from the people sitting at my table, eating my food, smiling at me with false faces. My home was my pride. I built it with my hands, I filled it with my memories, and I believed it was the safest place in my world. Every wall carried the weight of my labor. Every corner had laughter, tears, or joy attached to it. I thought my wife and my brother respected that. I thought they understood that the house was more than just a building. It was my honor. It was the only thing I had to show for the years I worked and sacrificed. I thought my home was untouchable, that no one would ever dare turn it into a place of shame. For years I lived blind in my faith. I believed my wife loved me the way I loved her. I believed my brother respected me the way I respected him. I believed the family I built was whole and safe. When I looked at her, I saw loyalty. When I looked at him, I saw blood I could trust. Together, they were supposed to be the two people in this world I never had to doubt. And that is why their betrayal cut deeper than anything else. Because it came not from strangers, not from enemies, but from the very two people I would have given my life for. The first signs were small, so small I almost ignored them. My wife had always been warm and polite with my brother, but suddenly her behavior shifted in ways that made me uneasy. When he visited, I began to notice the way her eyes followed him longer than they should have, the way her smile lingered when he spoke. At first, I told myself it was nothing, just family being friendly, but the little details began to pile up until they no longer felt harmless. I noticed how she laughed softer when he was around, laughter that seemed private, almost like a language between the two of them that I wasn't part of. When I walked into the room, the conversation would sometimes stop, leaving behind a silence that felt heavier than normal. I would ask what they were talking about, and she would brush it off with a joke or a quick change of subject. He would clear his throat and look away, and I would feel the doubt rise in me, but I pushed it down because trust was all I had. She also started finding excuses to linger whenever he was nearby. If I stepped out of the living room to take a call, I would return to find them sitting closer together than before. If I left the kitchen for even a few minutes, she suddenly had a reason to stay behind with him, claiming she was finishing something or discussing some family matter. I told myself not to think badly because I believed in both of them. I thought maybe I was being paranoid, that maybe I was too tired, too worn down, and my mind was playing tricks on me. But deep inside, a voice kept whispering that something was wrong. The visits became more frequent. My brother seemed to have more reasons to stop by, sometimes for things that didn't make sense, like asking to borrow tools he never used or dropping off papers that didn't matter. Each time he came, She lit up in a way I hadn't seen in years. She smoothed her hair, straightened her clothes, and looked at him with a spark that should have been reserved for me. My stomach twisted when I saw it, but again, I swallowed the doubt. I told myself it was family, nothing more. I told myself I was being unfair to even think such thoughts about my wife and my own blood. But the signs didn't stop. They grew. Their conversations became quieter, filled with hushed tones that excluded me. They shared glances across the room, glances that lasted just a second too long, but long enough for me to notice. When I tried to join in, they would both act normal, but I could feel the wall they had built, a wall that kept me outside. It was like watching shadows move at the corner of my vision, always there, never clear, but enough to make me question what was happening in my own house. I wanted to confront them, but I didn't. I was afraid of the answer. I was afraid that by asking, I would make the betrayal real. So instead, I silenced my doubts and clung to trust, even though trust had already started to feel like a noose around my neck. The day of discovery came when I least expected it. I had gone out early in the morning to take care of errands, but things moved quicker than I thought, and I returned home earlier than planned. As I stepped inside, I noticed the house was too quiet. No sound from the kitchen, no footsteps, no normal signs of daily life. Something felt wrong. I walked slowly down the hallway, and when I reached the bedroom door, I froze. It was slightly open, and through the small gap I saw movement. My heart pounded in my chest as I pushed it wider, and what I saw inside crushed me in a way I cannot fully describe. There they were, my wife and my brother, in my bed. The very bed I had shared with her for decades. The bed that carried memories of loyalty, sacrifice, and love. Betrayal had taken the one place I thought was safe, the one space I thought no one could ever dishonor. For a moment, I stood frozen, unable to breathe, unable to think, staring at the scene before me. My wife, the woman I trusted more than anyone else, and my brother, the man I defended all my life, were together in the worst way possible. My stomach turned, my hands shook, and rage mixed with heartbreak until I thought my chest would tear open. I wanted to storm in. I wanted to shout, but instead, I pulled my phone from my pocket. With trembling fingers, I snapped photos, each click of the camera cutting into my soul. I knew if I confronted them in that moment, they would deny it, twist it, try to escape the truth. But the photos gave me power. The photos were undeniable proof of what I had seen with my own eyes. They didn't notice me at first, so caught up in their betrayal that the world outside their moment didn't exist. But when they finally turned and saw me, the look on their faces burned itself into my memory. Her eyes went wide, his mouth fell open, and in an instant they scrambled, pulling away in shock and shame. The silence was thick, broken only by my heavy breathing. I didn't shout, I didn't curse. I just stood there, holding the phone in my hand, my face filled with a pain they could never understand. Without a word, I turned and walked out, leaving them in their panic. The truth was no longer hidden. I had seen it with my own eyes, in my own house, in my own bed. And now I carried the proof with me, proof that would one day destroy the lies they lived in. That discovery ended something inside me, but it also began something new. It ended my faith in them, but it began my plan for justice. That night, I sat alone in the living room, the photos still on my phone, and I felt a pain deeper than any I had ever known. I had faced struggles before in my life, but nothing compared to the weight of betrayal I carried in that moment. I stared at those pictures again and again, unable to stop myself even though each look cut me open all over again. The woman I had given decades of my life to, the woman I had worked for, sacrificed for, and defended against all odds, had thrown it all away. She did not go to a stranger's arms, she went to my brother. And not in some hidden place, not far away where I could pretend it was less cruel, but in my own house, in my own bed. The shame was unbearable. It was not just that she cheated, it was that she destroyed the dignity I thought my home held. I thought of the years I had trusted her, all the times I believed her smiles, the times I looked into her eyes and thought I saw love. I thought of my brother, how I had defended him, trusted him, treated him as if his problems were mine. To know that both of them had planned this, that both of them had betrayed me together, made me feel like my entire life had been a lie. Every family dinner, every laugh we shared, every handshake we exchanged, it all felt poisoned. I felt like a fool, like the joke they had been laughing about in private for who knows how long. Anger burned in me, but it wasn't enough. Rage could not undo what I had seen. Tears came, but they couldn't clean away the humiliation. I realized then that the pain would not leave me quickly. It would sit inside me, eating at me, until I found a way to balance it with something stronger. I knew shouting would not fix anything. I knew violence would not restore my dignity. I told myself that the only thing that could give me peace was justice, and justice would not come through loud words or broken fists. It would come through truth. I decided then and there that I would carry my silence, even though it tore me apart. I would hold the photos close, not for revenge born out of anger, but for justice born out of betrayal. I knew one day those images would speak louder than I ever could. But until that day came, I endured the silent pain, night after night, sitting in my chair, staring at the proof that my house had been defiled by the two people I trusted most. That silence hurt more than words can describe, but it also prepared me for what I had to do. As I carried the pain in silence, my thoughts began to drift toward my brother's wife. She was a woman who had always shown me kindness and respect. She welcomed me into her home, she trusted me as family, and she believed her marriage was strong. I had watched her smile when my brother spoke, and I knew she loved him with the same blind devotion I had once believed my wife gave me. In many ways, she was me. She lived under the same false trust, unaware of the lies happening behind her back. I realized she was just as much a victim as I was, and she deserved the truth. I thought of how many times she invited us for meals, how she treated my wife like a sister, how she trusted my brother so completely. All that time, she had no idea that her husband and my wife were destroying both of our marriages in secret. The thought sickened me. I looked at the photos again and told myself they were not only mine to hold, they belonged to her too. She had the right to see what was happening. She had the right to know that the man she shared a bed with had betrayed her, and not with just anyone, but with her own sister-in-law. It wasn't easy to come to that decision. Part of me wanted to spare her the pain, to protect her from the heartbreak I felt. But another part of me knew keeping it from her would make me just like them. Someone who lived in lies, someone who let her be blind when the truth was already in my hands. I could not do that. I could not let her smile at me, thinking life was whole, while I carried proof that it was broken. She deserved better than that. The more I thought about it, the clearer my decision became. She needed to see the truth with her own eyes, the same way I had. Only then would she understand the betrayal, and only then could she decide what to do with her own life. She was not weak, she was not blind. She was simply being kept in the dark, and I was the only one who could bring her into the light. I knew showing her would hurt her, but I also knew it would free her from lies, and in that realization, my path forward became clear. When the decision finally settled in my heart, I felt a strange calm. For weeks I had carried the pain like a stone on my chest, but now I had a plan, and that plan gave me strength. I chose not to fight, not to scream, not to let anger take control of me. If I confronted them directly, they would twist the story, deny everything, and try to make me look like the fool. They would turn the tables and say I was bitter, jealous, or old. I refused to give them that chance. The truth had to be undeniable, and the delivery had to be quiet, cold, and final. I opened the photos again and studied them carefully. Each image spoke louder than any words I could say. They were not opinions. They were not suspicions. They were proof. Clear, unshakable proof that my wife and my brother had crossed a line that could never be repaired. I placed the photos in an envelope, one by one, making sure they were in order. My hands trembled as I sealed it shut, but my resolve did not. I looked at the envelope and told myself this was no longer just about me. It was about giving the truth to the woman who had been betrayed just as I had. In that moment, I understood that real justice is not loud. Real justice is not delivered with fists or shouts. Real justice is delivered with facts that no one can erase. I did not need to ruin them with anger. I would ruin them with the very images they created. The betrayal happened in my house, in my bed, and I carried the weight of that shame. But by handing those photos to his wife, I would no longer carry it alone. They would be forced to face what they had done. I rehearsed how I would do it. No speeches, no long explanations, no accusations, just the truth, placed in her hands, simple and direct. I decided the moment I gave her the envelope, I would say nothing more than the truth she needed to hear. No excuses, no defense, just reality. I wanted her to see it with her own eyes and make her own judgment. Because once she saw those photos, there would be no denying what had been happening behind her back. That was the justice I planned for. That was the decision I made. The day I chose to expose the truth, I invited my brother's wife over for coffee. I kept my voice steady when I asked, not giving away the storm that was raging inside me. She came with a smile, thinking it was just another ordinary afternoon between family. She sat at the table, thanking me for the coffee, talking kindly the way she always did, not knowing that her world was about to collapse in front of her eyes. My hands shook slightly under the table as I reached for the envelope. I slid it across the wood slowly, my eyes fixed on her face. She looked at me, confused, asking with her eyes what it was. I said only the words I had rehearsed. Nothing more, nothing less. This was taken in my house. She opened the envelope, and as the photos spilled out, her face changed. The color drained from her cheeks, her lips trembled, and her eyes widened with shock. She picked up the first photo with shaking hands, then another, then another. Her silence said more than words ever could. I saw the heartbreak spreading across her face as she realized the truth. Her husband, the man she trusted completely, had betrayed her, and not with some stranger, but with my wife, in our home, in the bed that was supposed to be mine. She covered her mouth, a quiet sob escaping, her whole body trembling as she stared at the undeniable proof. I did not try to comfort her. I did not explain. There was nothing to explain. The photos spoke for themselves, louder than any speech I could have made. She looked at me with tears in her eyes, and though no words passed between us, I knew she understood why I had shown her. She had deserved the truth, and now she had it. That moment was heavy, painful, but it was also necessary. I had carried the burden of betrayal alone for too long. Now it was shared by the person who had been deceived just like me. She gathered the photos with shaking hands, sliding them back into the envelope, and whispered only one thing under her breath, so soft I almost didn't hear it. "Thank you." That afternoon changed everything. The truth was no longer mine to hold alone. It was now hers too, and I knew that together, our silence would no longer protect them. The exposure had begun. That evening the storm finally broke. My brother's wife went home with the envelope clutched tightly in her hands, and before the night was over, the truth exploded in their house. I did not have to be there to know how it unfolded. I heard about it afterward, and I could imagine every detail. She walked in quietly at first, setting her things down as if nothing was wrong. Then she pulled the envelope from her bag and dropped the photos on the table in front of him. My brother froze, his mouth opening, but no words coming out. He reached for the pictures, but she slapped his hand away. Her voice shook with rage as she asked how long it had been going on, how many times he had lied, how many excuses he had made while laughing behind her back. He tried to speak, to twist the story, but the photos were too strong. Every denial fell flat because the truth was staring back at both of them in cold, clear images. She shouted, and neighbors could hear through the walls. He raised his voice in return, but it only made him look smaller, weaker, guilty. In the middle of it all, she broke down crying, holding the pictures against her chest like they were knives she couldn't pull out. Their children heard the fight, their family members heard about it, and soon the whispers spread everywhere. What they had done in secret was now the shame of both families. At my own house, my wife realized what I had done. When she found out that the photos had been shown, her face went pale. She begged me to stay quiet, to think of the family, to think of appearances, but it was too late. The damage was done, and nothing could cover it anymore. For the first time, she was the one sitting in silence, crushed by the weight of exposure. The fallout spread like wildfire. Relatives called, demanding answers. Friends turned cold. My brother could not walk into a room without whispers following him. His wife no longer stood by his side, and the respect he once had in the family was gone. My wife, who had once mocked my loyalty, now sat in shame, unable to face the same family she had humiliated me in front of. The betrayal that once lived in shadows was dragged into the light, and in that light, both of them crumbled. The ruin that followed was complete, and it reached every corner of their lives. My brother lost everything he thought was secure. His wife no longer trusted him. His children looked at him with disappointment, and his reputation in the family collapsed overnight. He had spent years pretending to be honorable, but all of that was wiped away by a handful of photos that told the truth better than any words ever could. Friends who once welcomed him into their homes now turned him away. He walked with his head down, unable to meet the eyes of people who used to respect him. His marriage, once thought to be strong, was shattered beyond repair. His wife filed for separation, and even if she had not, the bond was already destroyed. There was no future left for them as husband and wife, because the foundation of trust had been reduced to rubble. My wife was no different. She had lived with pride, with arrogance, mocking my devotion as if it were weakness. But when her secret was exposed, she had nothing left to stand on. The dignity she once carried vanished in a single night. Family members no longer treated her the same. She walked into gatherings and felt the weight of their eyes on her, not in admiration, but in judgment. She tried to explain, tried to defend herself, but every word she spoke was drowned out by the photos. No excuse could erase them. No story could twist what everyone had seen. Her betrayal was undeniable, and with that betrayal came the loss of every ounce of respect she once held. The house itself felt different after that. The walls that once carried memories now carried shame. The bed where I had slept for years no longer felt like mine, because it had been used to dishonor me. I realized then that betrayal does not just break people. It poisons places too. What was once a home became a reminder of lies, but at the same time, it also became the place where I had taken my proof, the place where I gathered the strength to turn their betrayal back on them. In destroying my trust, they destroyed themselves. The ruin was not fast for them. It dragged on. Every day brought new consequences. Every phone call, every family meeting, every friend turning away was another crack in the image they had built. They thought they could betray me and keep living as if nothing had happened, but the truth made sure they could not. My brother lost his marriage, his family's faith, and his place in our bloodline's respect. My wife lost her dignity, her comfort, and the life she thought she had secured. They ruined themselves the moment they stepped into my bedroom together, but it was my proof that ensured everyone else would see it. When it was all over, I did not shout, I did not beg, and I did not break down. I walked away with my dignity because the truth had spoken louder than I ever could. My wife and my brother had defiled my house, my bed, and my trust, but I had destroyed their lives with nothing more than proof. That was my justice. They were left to live with the wreckage they had created. Their marriages crumbled, their families turned cold, and their reputations were gone. I did not have to lift a hand against them. I did not have to waste my breath in endless arguments. The photos were enough. The images of betrayal, captured in silence, became the voice of my justice. I realized then that sometimes revenge does not come through anger. It comes through patience. It comes through waiting until the right moment and then letting the truth crush the lies. My wife tried to carry herself as if she were proud, but now she cannot walk into a room without shame pressing down on her. My brother once thought he could look me in the eye, but now he avoids me, his head lowered, his pride gone. Both of them destroyed themselves the moment they betrayed me, but it was my decision to expose them that made the destruction permanent. I left them behind without regret. I did not stay to watch them fight. I did not try to mend what could not be mended. I simply closed the chapter and walked forward. Because while they lost everything, I gained back my dignity. I gained the peace of knowing I was not the fool they mocked me to be. I was the man who had endured betrayal and turned it into justice. And that, in the end, was enough. Final thought. They defiled my house. I destroyed their lives with the proof.